Hello everyone and welcome to day 1 of the new Highway to Hell tournament. 32 gas cars versus 32 electric cars. First group is already revving up and ready to go. Porsche in lane 1, Koenigsegg in lane 2, Pininfarina in lane 3, and a green Porsche in lane 4. And right off the bat, the white Porsche is actually falling behind just a tad, but he does have that inside lane. Let's see if that helps him at all. Not so much. In fact, I think he's actually going a little slower there. Meanwhile, the Koenigsegg and the Pininfarina are taking a little bit of a lead, extending it as they go. The green Porsche is trying to catch up, but is struggling to do so. And with a little switch up in these lanes, it looks like the Pininfarina actually took the lead, is flipped around going backwards, losing a little bit of speed there, trying to hold on. And it looks like he actually got a block off at the very end just to secure the win. A great start. Meanwhile, the white Porsche actually slows down, not even getting off the track all the way. Let's take a look at this again. The Pininfarina almost didn't have that, but because of that block at the very end, a very popular maneuver, he was able to secure a win to start off this tournament. A great place to be right off the bat. Alright, so the Pininfarina is starting off with a 5. A great place to be, getting a little bit of cushion there. Lane change. Heat 2, green Porsche in lane 1. Lane 2 is the white Porsche. Lane 3 is the Koenigsegg. And lane 4 is the Pininfarina. Now the Koenigsegg is actually taking an early lead here, while the Porsches are keeping up with the Pininfarina. And if I'm pronouncing those wrong, please let me know in the comments below. But yeah, the Koenigsegg is a little bit of a jump there, but it doesn't seem to be hindering him much. In fact, I think his lead is extending. Meanwhile, the Porsches seem to be slowing almost to a stop in that turn back there, while the Koenigsegg just keeps rocketing along with no other competitors in sight. In fact, it got faster than the camera could keep up with. But the Pininfarina does finish, along with the Porsches. That's actually kind of surprising, because it looked like they wouldn't even finish with that turn they kind of slowed down on. Let's see what kind of time the Koenigsegg had. A 15.54. That's about a second and a half faster than the first race for the Pininfarina. So they come in. A little bit more speed that time. That's more promising for the Porsche at least. Alright, so the Pininfarina and the Koenigsegg are tied with 8. The green Porsche has 4 and the white Porsche has 2. Not a good place to be when you're trying to stay in the game. Alright, as we keep going now, it looks like the Koenigsegg once again had the lead for a second but lost it. And as I say that, he's catching back up on the outside here. And the Porsches are actually kind of keeping up this time. Can they keep that going through this turn? Yes, in fact, it looks like the Pininfarina actually is the one who slowed down on that turn. And they're actually keeping up with the Koenigsegg, but he does have a decent lead. I don't know if they can catch up with him at this point. Oh my god, wait a minute, as I say that, he slows down, and the green Porsche almost takes the win there. Meanwhile, the white Porsche, surprisingly, doesn't finish. I'm not sure where he would have stopped, though, because he did have a good speed. Oh, wait, there he is. Somehow, he wasn't able to climb up that last little hill there, which really benefited the Pininfarina, because otherwise he probably would have finished in last. But yeah, the Koenigsegg barely kept that lead and almost didn't if the green Porsche didn't bump into him at the end. Alright, so the green Porsche can actually have a shot here, but the Koenigsegg and Pininfarina would actually need to fall in the bottom 2 spots. But the way they've been performing, it doesn't seem too likely. And as I'm saying that, the Koenigsegg once again takes an early lead, has that inside turn, and launches himself further forward, with the other 3 falling behind. The 2 Porsches just trying to find a way to stay in this race. I don't think it's possible for the white Porsche, but the green Porsche technically has a chance. And as I'm saying that, the green Porsche actually takes the lead in that stretch there. And he's in the final turn. He's rocketing ahead. Koenigsegg just overtakes him at the last possible second. Meanwhile, the Pininfarina barely finishes thanks to the white Porsche. And once again, the white Porsche struggles to even get off the track. That could have been what the green Porsche needed, but the Koenigsegg said, "No way, I'm pulling ahead of you, sir." So with that, the first 4 races are done. The Koenigsegg and the Pininfarina are moving on. Second group now, let's meet our racers. Lane 1, we have Mazda. Lane 2, Honda. Lane 3, Nissan Leaf. And Lane 4, Lucid Air. Right off the bat, the Honda takes a little bit of a lead, but the Nissan and Lucid are keeping up with him. In fact, the Lucid has a bit of a lead now, and the Mazda is quickly falling behind. Going after that first turn, it's the Honda and the Lucid kind of racing each other a little bit. Nissan's trying to keep up, but that Lucid Air is gradually expanding its lead over the others. And they're almost going out of camera now. Here we go. Lucid Air into that final turn. Kind of fishtails a little bit, but finishes far ahead of the others. Honda finishes in second. Nissan in third. Let's see. It looks like the Mazda didn't even finish. Let's see where they wound up. Where did they go? Did they even get past the second turn? Because they struggled. Oh, yep, there they are. Yeah, they did not get very far, and that kind of doesn't surprise me because they're driving. They weren't really going very fast at the start, and the turns probably slowed them down so much they couldn't even get down to that next turn there. Mazda gets a hefty 0, while the Lucid Air starts off with a 5. All right, lane change. Lucid Air in first lane. Mazda in second. Third is Honda, and the fourth lane is the Nissan Air. Once again, the other three racers take off while the Mazda quickly falls behind. This is not looking good for the Mazda. I don't know what they thought by choosing this vehicle, or maybe just their driving is not that great. But the Lucid Air once again takes a bit of a lead. Honda right behind them, and they actually start to take the lead there. Can they hold on to it? They clash a little bit. They spin around. The Honda actually almost falls off the track there, but manages to maintain enough speed to finish in a good solid second. Nissan finishes in third. Is the Mazda not going to finish again? Where did they go? Oh, they didn't actually get that much further, and they somehow ended up backwards on the track. Not sure how they did that, but hey, they still didn't finish, so they get another 0. This is not looking good for the Mazda. Alright, so the Lucid Air already has 2 wins under their belt. If they can finish in first again, they pretty much guarantee a spot in the final round. Here they take off again, and history is repeating itself as the other 3 racers move on ahead while the Mazda quickly just falls behind, almost gets stuck on that first turn actually. Lucid Air takes the lead. Honda's trying to catch up here. Can they make something happen? They're a little bit further behind than they were in the last race. So the Lucid Air, it looks like they're going to get the third win unless something happens. And as I say that, he goes sideways, loses a bit of speed, but manages to maintain that lead until the very end. Honda finishes in second. Nissan actually fell behind a little bit there, but he still finished in third. And once again, the Mazda is nowhere to be found. Did he at least get a little bit further? And no, he actually got stuck on that first turn. Didn't even get anywhere close to where he was before. If anyone was a Mazda fan, I'm sorry, but this is not looking good for them. Meanwhile, the Lucid Air gets a third win in a row, pretty much securing a spot in the final round here. And the Honda's not doing so bad either. Alright, so the Lucid Air has already secured their spot. Honda is in a good place, but he's not out of the woods yet. He has a little bit of competition from the Nissan Leaf. Meanwhile, the Lucid Air is 1 win away from a sweep right off the bat, which is great. A great sign for future endeavors. Meanwhile, the Mazda can't even get past that first turn. It's like it just seems to struggle with the wider turns, which is not very good in a race like this. Meanwhile, the Honda and Nissan fall very much behind, while the Lucid Air once again takes a huge lead. It looks like they're going to get the sweep. And as I say that, they lose a bit of speed going sideways, but they still manage to get the win and the sweep. And once again, the Mazda is just stuck. They just seem to get further and further back on the track with each race, which is not very good at all, and they are just out of it. I don't know what you would call a full 0 sweep, like an anti-sweep or something maybe? But yeah, they did not even finish once. Meanwhile, the Lucid Air and the Honda are moving on to the finals. This will have the best 2 racers from each of the previous rounds, the Koenigsegg, the Pininfarina, the Lucid Air, and the Honda. The Koenigsegg and the Lucid Air seem to be the ones that have the highest chance, but that doesn't mean it's guaranteed. Now, as I'm saying this, they're all actually staying pretty close to each other, but those turns seem to be really deadly in terms of losing speed. The Lucid Air does take a bit of a jump there, but is managing to hold on to a lead with the Honda not too far behind, actually. And he's shown that he can catch up if given the right opportunity. It just doesn't seem like he has it here. Lucid Air finishes in first, Honda in second, and the other two, the Koenigsegg finishes in third, and the Pininfarina barely gets across the finish line there. Now let's see what the time was. A 14. They definitely can get a sub 13 at that rate. If they already did, I might have missed it. My apologies. But yeah, everybody at least finished, which is a step up from the last round. The Pininfarina surprisingly in last. I figured he'd at least finish in third, but I'm proven wrong. Alright, switching up lanes for heat number 2. Lucid Air is once again showing how much of a threat he is as a driver, with the Honda staying close behind. Of course, these lanes could make all the difference. It really depends how they perform overall. Blue Honda is keeping up a little bit, but the Lucid Air is gradually extending that lead again, and that turn just killed all of Honda's speed. Meanwhile, Lucid Air stays way ahead, actually starts going backwards, but doesn't actually lose too much speed, bouncing off the walls, and the Honda gets a block, barely finishing in second with the Koenigsegg right there. Pininfarina finishing in fourth. Yeah, take a look at this. The Honda almost manages to lose second place, but keeps that nose in front, allowing it to secure that second spot. Alright, the Lucid Air has not lost a single race yet. No matter which lane they're in, they just seem to be able to dominate, or at the very least not lose as much speed as the other racers on the different turns. He's got the inside lane now. Let's see if that helps him at all. And it definitely does. He kind of slingshots himself there, actually. The Honda trying to maintain a second place position, but the other racers are right on his tail. But the Lucid Air just shows that he is someone to be reckoned with. Kind of drifts on that last turn. That was pretty cool. Kind of glides along at the very end there. Once again, Honda finishes in second. Pininfarina almost finishes in third, but the Koenigsegg does not let him do that. A little bit of a crazy finish, kind of goes sideways, loses a lot of speed, but he stops Pininfarina from going anywhere. And with that, the Lucid Air already has secured the win. At this point, he's just taking a victory lap to try and get the complete sweep in this video. So they all start off in this last race here, and they're actually pretty close to each other still. But that first turn seems to make all the difference in the end. Once again, Lucid Air kind of slingshots forward here. Honda trying to make something happen, but is unable to do so. Even if he did finish in first, it would not matter. Lucid Air once again takes a little bit of a hop, but doesn't lose much speed. Spins around, corrects himself, and finishes first for the complete sweep. Right in the first day, we have a complete sweep by one of the racers. Fantastic driving, and just great control by that driver. Shows he is, in fact, a threat to possibly win everything if he keeps this up. And there you have it. The Lucid Air gets the complete sweep and advances to the final video where you will see him race again. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you all for more races and fun. Highway to Hell Tournament, gas versus electric cars. Let's meet our first group. In lane 1 we have the Viper, lane 2 the Corvette, lane 3 the Audi RS, and lane 4 the Tesla Model X. And here we go, day 2 is underway. The Tesla Model X takes an early lead, and they're actually kind of going in an evenly spaced descending order from left to right. Tesla Model X stays in the lead, and I was about to say that the other racers are following close behind, but the Tesla Model is actually taking a bit of a lead right now. And we've seen in the previous race that some of these turns can really kill a racer's speed, but the Tesla Model X is having no problem. He actually went faster there. And oh wait, he actually went sideways, slowed to a stop, barely crossed the finish line before the Audi got there. And here come the other two racers. Is the Viper going to finish? Yes, he is. Okay. And somehow the Tesla Model X, actually somehow wound up upside down. Let's see if this replay showed it. He did get those wheels across, so he still gets the win. And he got pushed over the railing. Hopefully the driver's okay, because I can't imagine that those are pleasant collisions. But the Viper comes in, and here's our scores for the first round. The Viper with 1, the Corvette with 2, the Audi RS with 3, and the Tesla X with 5. A great place to start. Let's see if they can maintain that lead for the rest of the race. Here we go, lanes changed, and the Tesla X is already kind of growing a decent-sized lead. Meanwhile, the Viper is falling behind. Yet somehow the Tesla Model X is taking off a lot faster than he was in the previous race. And it looks to me, based off what I'm seeing here, that the Tesla Model X is good when it's a narrow, concentrated path. But once it gets to those open lanes, yeah, as you're seeing right now, he's kind of losing control and bouncing off the walls a bit, which right now is not too bad, because he's still able to maintain that speed and has a huge lead over everybody else. But once, if he moves on, he faces other racers, that could be a problem. So he does get that win, and everybody finishes in about the same position as they did in the first race, which is good for the top 2 racers, not so good for the Corvette or the Viper. Let's see if another lane change will help these racers at all. Here we go, another lane change. This is race number 3. The Tesla and the Audi are already in a good position to move on, but that doesn't mean the Audi especially is out of the woods. And the Audi is actually kind of keeping up with the Tesla right now, giving him a run for his money. Let's see if the turns make a big difference, because sometimes that makes someone lose their speed a lot. As you just saw there, the Audi is starting to fall behind. If the Tesla falls apart again, they might be able to take advantage of that, but he doesn't. Gets the win. Audi finishes in second again. There's the Corvette, and the Viper is somehow way up here. In fact, he couldn't even get over that last little hump there to move on to the final stretch. Not entirely sure what happened. If I had to guess, that previous turn leading into this part of the track slowed him down to the point where he just could not get over that last hill. But he at least finished a couple times, which is better than one of the racers we had in the last leg. Yeah, the Tesla X has already stamped his way into the final round. Now let's see if the Audi can do the same thing. Alright, here we go. Final race. The Tesla is already in, so this is kind of a victory lap for him. Meanwhile, the Audi does have a decent chance, but if the Corvette pulls off a miracle here, he may actually take that spot away from him. But the Tesla, he's in a really good position. We're not too worried about him at this point. As long as he doesn't swivel around and stop at the end like he did last time, he should be okay. Sure enough, he is. And the Audi is able to move on, knocking out the Corvette and the Viper. A good effort by those 2 racers, but unfortunately it just was not enough. 14.1, a very respectable time. We've seen some racers get close to breaking that 14-second mark. So I'm pretty sure someone will at some point. And the Tesla X and the Audi RS move on. Let's meet our second group of racers. Lane 1 is the Nissan, Lane 2 is the McLaren, Lane 3 is the Mustang, and Lane 4 is a Nissan Leaf. If I recall correctly, we had a Nissan Leaf in the last leg. They didn't necessarily win, but they still put forth a valiant effort. Now, the Mustang kind of has a bit of a lead here, but during that first turn, the Nissan takes the win, but the Mustang is not having any of that. Pulls a bit ahead. Let's see what this turn does. And it kills the speed of 3 of the racers. The Mustang actually takes the lead here. Let's see how they do in this final stretch. They turn around, go backwards, but they still have enough of a lead to take that win. And here come the other racers, with the McLaren finishing in 4th. But it was very close. It's still very possible for them to make something happen in the last 3 races of this particular leg. 16.05, not the greatest time we've seen, but they're just getting started. They might be able to warm up and do something better after that. Alright, so in Heat 2, the 2 Nissans are next to each other, and the McLaren is next to our Mustang, who currently has the lead right now. Let's see if they can hold on to that. And at the beginning of this race, all 4 racers are actually kind of staying pretty close together. Let's see if this first turn changes that. Not really. They're still kind of neck and neck. The Mustang is trying to get the lead back, and they do that. And then the Nissan Leaf is falling behind, and I don't think that turn is going to help him. In fact, I think they got stuck. Meanwhile, the Mustang has its lead again, but the other two racers are right behind him. He spins around, goes backwards. The Nissan almost got the lead from him, but he wasn't able to do it. And let's see, where is our Nissan Leaf friend? He actually did get around that turn and is able to finish, which at least gives him a point instead of no points. And hey, any little bit helps, but in a race like this, that's not going to help them much. Yeah, the Mustang almost lost that one, but they still held on to the lead, giving them 10 points. Alright, heat number 3, the Nissans are in the two middle lanes, while the Mustang and the McLaren are on the outside lanes. Once again, they're kind of staying neck and neck, but the Nissan and the Nissan Leaf are falling a little bit behind. Meanwhile, the Mustang is already taking a decent-sized lead, and they've shown that once they have that lead, they're not about to give that up. But as I'm saying this, the Nissan and the McLaren take a big lead. The Mustang loses a lot of speed there and is trying to make something happen. And the Nissan is pulling away on this final turn. No one is going to be able to touch him. This is exactly what the Nissan needed. Meanwhile, the Mustang does finish in second, so he still has a solid chance to move on to the final round. And the McLaren was actually pretty close behind. If he finished in front of the Mustang, that would have really helped them, but unfortunately they were not able to. So with that, I don't know if the Nissan Leaf or the McLaren really have a shot to move on at this point. This is Mustang and Nissan's race to lose. In fact, at this point, they're pretty much just racing for who can get the top overall score at the end of this leg. And they've both shown that they are pretty good fighters, and they're kind of going back and forth right now, with the Nissan going in front of the Mustang. The Mustang does have that wider turn, and it does kill a little bit of his speed, but the McLaren actually seems to have gotten stuck on that last turn up there. Meanwhile, the Nissan does have the lead. He's able to hold on to it. He finishes in first. I think that might actually result in the Nissan and the Mustang tying, and the McLaren does actually finish. It didn't look like he was going to based on that last turn up there, but he did actually do it. So he was at least able to say he finished all the races, which not every racer has been able to do so far. Yeah, the Nissan and the Mustang both tied at 16, a respectable performance. Now moving on to the finals. This ought to be a good one. Now, Tesla Model X, Nissan, Mustang, and Audi. All four of them have been shown to be quite the formidable opponents. Let's see if any of them can actually beat the fastest time we've had in our tournament so far, which I believe was done last time by the Lucid Air, with a time of about 14.025. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I seriously think, based off what Lucid Air was doing, that a sub 14 is definitely possible. In fact, I'm sure we'll see a small handful of racers pull that off by the end. Now, the Tesla Model X is taking the lead in the final turn here. Doesn't have anyone quite near him, but he did lose some speed. Thankfully for him, though, he did have enough space between him and second that he was still able to pull off that win. Now let's see what kind of time he had. A 14.42, that is not bad. If he had full control on that last turn there, he might have broken 14 seconds. Still a great place to start, though, with that 5 points. Alright, here we go. Heat 2, lane changes have been made, and here we go. All four of them are staying pretty much right on top of each other, but as we've seen in the other races, these turns can be absolutely deadly to some of them. So far, they're still kind of staying relatively close, but this next turn right here has been a killer for many racers. Yeah, there's definitely a little bit more separation, but it's still pretty close overall. Can the Tesla keep control? No, he goes sideways and then backwards. The Mustang's trying to catch up to him, but does not have the speed to do it, and the Tesla Model X once again finishes in first. If he can do that again, he seals his victory and will move on alongside the Lucid Air. 14.79, not as good as the first time, but he's shown that he can have the speed, he just needs to keep control. Alright, Heat 3, more lane changes. Now the Tesla Model X is on the cusp of an overall victory if he can finish in first place. And so far he does have that lead, but the Mustang is right on his tail. Can the inside turn really help him here? It does for a split second, but the Tesla Model X is taking off a little bit, gradually extending his lead, which might be extended further after this turn. And it certainly is. At this point, it's the Tesla's race to lose. He just has to keep control over this last turn, and he does, finishes in first, and seals his victory, joining the Lucid Air in the next set of races. See, did he break 14? 14.03. I think that was really close, but the Lucid Air was slightly faster. But the Tesla X is a competitor to take the fastest time. Alright, final race, and off we go. Now once again, the Tesla already has the overall win. At this point, he's trying to not only get the clean sweep here, but he's also trying to break the Lucid Air's fastest time of 14.025. He almost had it in that last race, so he knows it can be done. If he can keep a clean race here, he might actually pull it off. Either way, I'd say the Lucid Air has some decent competition. Goes around that last turn pretty cleanly, but at the last second he starts drifting sideways a bit, probably losing some speed, which would cost him, I believe, the fastest time. Let's check that out. Oh no, he actually did beat the Lucid Air's fastest time, 14.007. Almost broke the 14-second mark, but didn't quite do that. But he has shown that the Lucid Air does have some competition. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next time for more races and fun. Welcome to Day 3 of the Highway to Hell Gas vs. Electric Car Tournament. The first group is ready, so let's go and meet them. We have the Stingray, the Kia, the Tesla, and another Lucid Air. Now if you recall correctly, on Day 1 we had another Lucid Air that was an absolute titan on the track, and I'm pretty sure they never lost a single race. And they did have the fastest time out of anybody until a Tesla model came on Day 2 and got that record from them. That being said, this particular Lucid Air is already making a name for themselves and taking quite a bit of a lead, not wanting to be overshadowed by the other Lucid Air that has performed already. They get into this final stretch going backwards, but they have enough ground, it seems, to get that win and keep anybody from catching up to them. Meanwhile, the Stingray is trailing behind by quite a bit, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean they can't make something happen in these next races, because we see that sometimes, depending on which lane you're in, the turns can either help you or really slow you down. But the Lucid Air vehicle has been shown before that they can do well regardless of which lane they're in. And they start off with a 15.7, not quite where they want to be, but I'm pretty sure the first Lucid Air kind of started that way too. Alright, heat number 2, everyone has switched lanes. Let's see if this makes a difference for any of them. The 3 of our racers are doing pretty well, but the Stingray is quickly losing ground, and I'm sure these turns are not going to help them if they're already going that slow. And, whoa, hold on a second, I thought the Lucid Air was just going to take a big lead, but as I'm starting to say that, the other 2 racers go way ahead of them, and the Lucid Air loses a lot of ground on that big turn. Meanwhile, the Tesla and the Kia are racing towards the finish, and it looks like the Kia took the win, with the Tesla coming in second, and the Lucid Air surprisingly finishing in third. I don't know about all of you, but I was thinking we'd have another sweep by that Lucid Air, and unfortunately, the Stingray got stuck up there. Did they actually derail a little bit? It was kind of hard to tell from that angle. But if they do things like that, it's not going to look good for them. So the Lucid Air does not actually get a clean sweep this time, which may surprise a few people. But they did get a win to start off with, so that should help them at least a little bit in terms of overall points, and increasing their chances a little bit to move on to the finals. We're in the middle of Heat 3 now. They're approaching that first turn, and the Lucid Air is trying to fight for first, is kind of going back and forth with the other racers, and is actually not doing as well as I would have expected. But they are staying in second, and as we're seeing, that wide turn is a killer. Because every single racer we've seen so far seems to trail behind a little bit, and the Kia finishes in first again. But the Lucid Air does finish in second, so that'll help them a little bit. But because of that third place finish in race 2, it increases the chances for other vehicles to possibly take the spot in the finals away from them. And a 15.92, Certainly not where these racers want to be if they want to catch up to the previous Lucid Air or the Tesla Model X from the last time. Now here we go into the final heat of round 1, and it's the Kia, surprisingly, that has already secured their spot in the finals today. It's just a matter of who's going to join them. The Lucid Air technically has the highest chance right now, but the Tesla also has a shot, but they certainly would need to do really well, while the Lucid Air would need to fall behind. A very specific set of circumstances, but it could still actually happen. As I say this though, the Lucid Air takes full opportunity of the tighter turn and takes the lead away from the Kia. They go into this final stretch now, still a decent distance ahead of the Tesla. They do flip around backwards, but they had enough momentum going forwards to cross the finish line first, ultimately knocking out the Tesla. The Stingray, unfortunately, did not have much of a chance at all at that point. In fact, I think they had no chance, but they still put forth a valiant effort, all things considered. The Tesla, though, did have a shot, but it was ultimately taken away by the Lucid Air, who will join the Kia in the finals. Alright, we're going to go into the second group now. Let's meet our racers. It's the Nissan Z, the Honda, the Mustang, and the Jaguar. We've had a Mustang race before, as well as previous versions of a Nissan, so let's see if they can do better than their previous counterparts. Right now the Jaguar has the lead, but they do have that wider turn there. It does slow them down a little bit, but look at this, they're actually increasing their speed, also increasing their lead simultaneously, leaving the other three in the dust. They have that tighter turn allowing them to maintain their speed, and now the other three racers are just completely off camera. Can they maintain their speed while going into that final turn? They do, and they finish with a pretty good time, I'm sure, with the other three trailing behind. Let's see what kind of time that was. It looks like a 14.89. Still not the fastest time we've seen so far, but it's still better than some of the ones we've seen today. So I think if they keep straight and fast, they will have a decent shot at breaking the record. So the Jaguar does start off with a solid 5, a good place to be, obviously. And the Jaguar has shown to have good speed and control, two things that you absolutely need on a race course like this, especially when you go around those turns, because we've shown so far quite a few times that you could have a decent spot on the track, but those turns can instantly end your run. The Jaguar is already pulling away. The Honda's trying to catch up a little bit, so far is unable to do so, and even with that really slow wide turn, the Jaguar has the lead. He's going into this open part of the track now in the final stretch. Oh, he spins around, goes backwards. Oh wait, he's slowed down to a stop. The Honda's right behind him. I think the Honda actually beat him. We're gonna have to double check the replay for that, but it seriously looked like the Honda actually took the win away from him at the last second. Just as I'm saying the Jaguar has good control, the Honda comes out of nowhere, taking full advantage of its opportunity. Let's see if the score says that he won. Yeah, the Honda finished before him, and it looks like the Mustang did too, apparently. Not what I was expecting at all, but this really changes things up dramatically. I am just left speechless after that last race. It looked like the Jaguar had set themselves up to easily get to the finals, but after that last race, it's pretty much anyone's game. The Jaguar does have a bit of a lead right now, but as we saw, anything can happen at any point, even at the last possible moment. And the Honda's pulling up right beside him right now, hoping to cut him off before they get to the open spot, is unable to do so, but he's still right behind him. The Jaguar did maintain control this time, allowing him to get another win, which is very much needed for them right now. Meanwhile, the Mustang finishes in last. Now let's see what kind of time that was. A 14.76, that is not the greatest time, but a sub 15 is still at least respectable. Alright, so we go into the last race here, and the Jaguar, despite that finish in the second race, has already solidified their position in the finals. The Honda does have a very solid chance to join him, but the Mustang technically has an opportunity. In order for that to happen, though, the Honda would need to not finish at all, and the Mustang would need to finish in first, which doesn't seem very likely, especially since the Jaguar's out in front, and the Honda would still need to not finish. And it looks like they're going to. Jaguar finishes in first, And the Honda, I don't think they took third place from the Mustang, but just the fact that the Honda finished at all allows them to move on to the finals with the Jaguar. A good attempt by the Mustang, but unfortunately it was not enough for them. And with the Jaguar and Honda moving on, we have our 4 finalists, so let's move straight into the finals. I don't know about you, but I am very excited to see how this plays out. We have another Lucid Air in the finals, although they haven't been performing quite as well as the previous one, but I still think they have a shot. The Jaguar has been shown to be good, but not very consistent, and they're joined by Kia and a Honda. Going into this next stretch here, the Jaguar does have a bit of a lead again, but as we've seen already multiple times, that can change at any time. They don't seem to do really well on that final turn, but if they can maintain control, they usually can hold on to some form of a lead, and that is the case here. They did go sideways a little bit, but they managed to keep straight for the most part, allowing them to get a 14.5 still, a very respectable time. Alright, so the Jaguar starts off with a 5, Kia with a 3, the Honda with 2, and the Lucid Air with 1. Definitely a bit of a surprise when once again comparing them to the previous Lucid Air. But hey, maybe people don't want to see more than one Lucid Air in the final round of the tournament. Jaguar once again does start off with a bit of a lead, but the Honda has been shown that just because they start off behind does not mean that they'll stay that way. And with that tight turn, they actually managed to grab the lead. Everyone's staying pretty close together for the most part. They kind of clash together at that final turn. Who's going to hold on to the lead? It looks like it'll be the Jaguar. And the Kia actually manages to take second place. And the Lucid Air somehow is unable to finish. They just get stuck there. Let's see if the replay really shows how that happened. Yet they all kind of bunched together there. And the Lucid Air just kind of spun out a little bit. And they lost all their speed. Very unfortunate. I guess that's what can happen, though, when you have to try and live up to the expectations of the fans, who have already seen someone driving the same vehicle perform much, much better. Going into this third race now, the Jaguar already has 10 points. If they can win this race here, they will automatically solidify their victory and move on alongside our previous 2 winners. Saying that, though, the other 3 racers are kind of keeping up with him. The Honda is falling behind a little bit after that big turn, but the other 2 are right with the Jaguar. In fact, one of them is in front of him and is able to finish in first. Jaguar finishes in second, Kia in third, and the Honda, surprisingly, barely even finishes. Now, there was a 14.36, a very good time. Still not a record breaker, but it's definitely heading in the right direction. And now going into this final race, the Jaguar did finish with a 3 instead of a 5. And while they still have the highest chance to move on, they still have a slight chance that the Kia will take that spot away from them. In order for that to happen, though, the Jaguar would need to not finish at all, and the Kia would need to finish in first. Right now, the Kia is the one that's trailing behind a bit, and even if the Jaguar finishes, period, they will still move on. Along with our previous 2 winners, so far they're going into this final stretch without any real competition, and they finish in first, allowing them to solidify spot number 3 in the final part of this tournament. A great performance by the Jaguar. They do have a little bit of inconsistency to work with, but they did finish here with a 14.10, which is even closer to breaking the record. Almost got it, actually. But they will be joining the Tesla Model X and our previous Lucid Air in the finals. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you for more races and fun. And welcome to day number 4 for the Highway to Hell Gas vs. Electric Car Tournament. We have the first group here. It is a Porsche, a Corvette, a BMW, and a Tesla. We've actually seen a small handful of Teslas now. Let's see if this one can do any different. So far, they already have the lead, and they're going into that wider turn, which does slow most racers down, but I think they're actually going faster here. Meanwhile, the other 3 racers are relatively staying close together, and the Tesla has that tight turn, allowing them to get an even further lead. And they're just leaving everyone in the dust so far. They're coming into this final stretch. They start going sideways, but they were able to at least go backwards a little bit, allowing them to finish first. But that was a bit dangerous because the BMW was speeding up towards the end, almost catching up really. See, the Tesla's performance with that slide was a 14.26, which is really good. Had they stayed perfectly straight, they might have been able to beat the record so far, which was actually done by another Tesla with a time of 14.007. Okay, going into heat number 2 now. The Tesla, Porsche, Corvette, and BMW is the order now. Let's see if that makes a difference for any of our racers. Well, not too much of a difference. The Tesla is once again in the lead, this time taking the inside turn there. And they already are leaving everyone in the dust. However, they do have this big turn here, and they do lose a decent amount of speed, but they were already far enough ahead where that doesn't really make much of a difference. Can he stay straight going onto this final stretch? No, he can't. Goes sideways a little bit, bounces off the walls a couple times, but still finishes in first. Wait, is that a new record? I can't tell. It was a 14.0 something. 14.07, not quite a record, but very, very close. So the Tesla already has 2 wins under their belt, 1 more, and they'll automatically move on to the final round here. Now, I know I'm putting a lot of attention on the Tesla right now, but the Tesla is giving good reason to give them attention, because so far, they've almost broken the fastest time record twice, and that's after they started swerving and bouncing off the walls. If they can stay perfectly straight, I am fully confident that they can not only break the fastest time, but also break the 14-second mark, which other racers have been close to doing, but just are shy of it. Now, as I say this, the Tesla once again finishes, so he does solidify his final spot position. What happens now is up to the other 3 racers, and that was a time of 14.55, still a good time, but a little bit slower than his other 2 attempts. At this point, it's between the Corvette and BMW, so let's see what happens. Unfortunately, the Porsche is already out, but the BMW and the Corvette are just 1 point difference. So really, it could just boil down to who finishes in front of the other, but if neither one of them finishes in first, then it could lead to a tiebreaker that we have to do, which would be the first one in this league so far. Right now, though, the Tesla is once again in front, but the Corvette is actually not too far behind. He does drift a little bit behind the Tesla, causing him to not really be able to catch up, but he does finish in front of the BMW. Is that going to allow him to move on, or is that going to be a tiebreaker? We'll have to see. And the Tesla has been fairly consistent this entire time, usually not going much higher than 14.5 seconds. And with that performance, the Corvette moves on, and the BMW is out. So going into Heat 1 of the second race group here, we have the Kia, the Dodge, the Rimac, and the Audi. So far, they're kind of staying neck and neck, but these turns can make all the difference. Right now, it's the Kia that has the lead, but the Rimac and the Audi are quickly making up that ground. In fact, it looks like the Kia just lost a lot of that space there. The Rimac and the Audi are now out in front, going back and forth as they go into this final turn. The Audi goes backwards, and they're right side by side with each other, and the Rimac sticks his nose out in front of the Audi to make sure that he gets the win. Not often seen in this league so far, but it's still a very reliable maneuver if you can at least get the nose out in front of your opponent. If it doesn't work, it could be very dangerous, but here it did work, it paid off, and it is the Rimac, I believe, that gets that first win. Now, the Dodge did not do so well there, but maybe they just had to slow down a little bit on one of those turns. Alright, heat number 2, everyone has switched lanes. Let's see how this changes things up. And off they go! Oh, the Dodge seems to be struggling a bit today. I guess it is not really the best one for a track like this, so I'm not sure what they were thinking here. But maybe they'll pull something out that we don't expect. For the moment, though, the Rimac has the lead with the Audi right behind him once again. These two must have some sort of grudge towards each other because they are going neck and neck constantly, fighting for that top spot. And this time it's the Audi that wins, with the Kia finishing in third once again, and the Dodge did finish a little bit faster, but based off what we've seen so far, it's not going to be anything good for them. A 14.7, as I've mentioned before, a sub 15 is good, but I am fully confident that there will be a car that breaks the 14-second mark. We just haven't seen it yet. All right, going into the final two heats of this race group, it's really between the Rimac and the Audi at this point, although the Kia does have a shot, but they need to start doing well, because if they don't do well in this race, their chances to move on drop significantly. And as I say that, they are keeping up with the other two, and they have the tighter turn, allowing them to gain a little bit of a lead. But the question is, can they hold on to it, especially going into this final stretch with the Audi right behind them? They're spinning out of control, correcting themselves, and the Kia does actually finish in first. This is something they desperately needed in order to stay in this competition, but unfortunately the one thing that's still consistent is the Dodge finishing a bit farther behind the other three. At a 14.76, so far these racers are starting to get a little bit faster overall. Let's see if someone can actually beat the record in this group. So going into this final heat now, it's the Kia that really made that surprise win there, allowing them to stay in this competition, and now he, as well as the Audi and the Rimac, are all within a point or two of each other. It could really depend now on who finishes first in regards to those three. But I would not be surprised, since they're so close, that this could end with a tiebreaker for one of the positions in the finals. Right now the Rimac is falling behind again, and it's once again the Kia and the Audi out in front. They just keep spinning, and this time the Audi finishes in first. But the Kia does finish in second. Is that going to be enough to take the spot in the finals away from the Rimac? Did the Dodge not finish? Oh yeah! The Dodge actually got stuck this time. They were not able to finish that last race, which at this point is just salt on the wound, because they did finish in last the other three times, so they would have loved to at least finish altogether, but unfortunately they couldn't. And we actually do have a tiebreaker on our hands. It's going to be between the Kia and the Rimac. With that win that the Kia had earlier, it really saved their bacon, but they are not out of the woods yet. They will now have a one-on-one best of three, I believe, with this Rimac, and whoever finishes twice ahead of the other will move on to the finals alongside the Audi. They're pretty much neck and neck, showing that they're both formidable racers, but the Rimac actually pulls away as I say that. He does flip around and starts going sideways, stops right at the finish line, but I think he got far enough that he had the win. Even if he didn't, he had blocked the path almost completely, keeping the Kia from being able to finish in first. So the first race, if not the only race, goes to the Rimac, excuse me. But they are doing a second race, so it looks like it will be a 2 out of 3. The Kia needs to finish first in order to keep their dreams of winning this tournament alive. Otherwise, the Rimac will be the one joining the Audi. Going into this decisive turn, the Rimac does have the lead, so the Kia is in trouble. They will need to pull something out of here real fast. And so far they're doing that. They go into the final turn bumping into each other, but in doing so the Kia lost a lot of momentum, and they were not able to catch up to the Rimac. And as a result, the Rimac will be joining... Yeah, I cannot talk today. The Rimac will be joining the Audi in the finals alongside our previous two racers. So here we go. Alright, Heat 1 of the finals is about to begin, and we have 4 very formidable racers here. The standout, I would arguably say, is the Tesla, as they have become the closest to breaking the speed record so far of about 14.007 set by a previous Tesla model. And I really think this one has the capability to do it, because they've gotten close twice already. And they're pretty far ahead of the other racers, and they're keeping pretty straight. If they can stay that way, they might actually break the 14-second mark. Are they going to do it? Let's take a look. It looks like they did. It's hard to see the exact time from this angle, but they definitely broke 14 seconds. Unfortunately, one of the racers actually did not finish. Let's see how that happened in just a moment. But when you're in the finals, not finishing at all is not a good sign. Let's see the exact time. A 13.7495. I'll have to try and remember that exact number. But we finally have someone who broke the 14-second mark, and that goes to this Tesla racer. What's wonderful driving. Heat number 2, the Tesla with that speed is showing that they are most likely to win the finals if they can remain that consistent, which they've been shown to be able to do. So these other 3 racers definitely have their work cut out for them, but they are staying close behind. Can the turns really help them? To some degree, one of the racers is actually right next to them. In fact, they took the lead, clash on that final turn, and the Tesla's losing control. But they do manage to stay in second as they all pile up one after another. A very interesting finish. And it's only hard a little bit to keep track of which one is which because they're all similar colors. But a 14.57 is still nothing to sneeze at. Alright, so that win was definitely something that the Audi needed because they didn't even finish in that last race, which is a bit of a shame for them. However, that win definitely kept their hopes alive. If they can keep a little more consistent now, they might still have a shot. With that though, the Rimac does have a slight lead over the rest, but the Audi's right behind him. In fact, he now doesn't necessarily take the lead. In fact, it's the Tesla and the Corvette that come out in front, and the Tesla takes the lead. Can he hold onto it going into this final turn? He does. Oh wait, but he stops. He stops right on the track. And the Audi takes the win, but the Tesla is then pushed forward by the Rimac, allowing him to at least finish in second. That just goes to show that anything can happen, and this time it's the Corvette that doesn't finish the race. We've actually had a small handful of times now where somebody just skids sideways and comes to a stop right before the finish line. Sometimes they get pushed along, sometimes they don't. Now this is definitely a surprising turn of events. Despite that first race where they didn't finish, the Audi has 10 points while the Tesla has 11, meaning if the Audi finishes in first, he has a good shot to take the ultimate win away from the Tesla, who currently holds now the fastest time we've seen on this track so far. Saying that though, the Tesla does have a big lead. As we've seen though, he doesn't always remain perfectly straight, which can result in him stopping on the track and somebody taking that lead from him, but this time that does not happen. And they come in one after another after that, but because of that final finish, it is the Tesla who will move on, while also holding the record for the fastest time. In fact, I think he just did it again. I could be wrong, but it's really close. The Tesla managed to win with the fastest time and completes the first half of our roster. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on more races and fun. And welcome to day 5 of the Highway to Hell Gas vs. Electric Car Tournament. The first group is lined up. We have the Aston Martin, the Lamborghini, another Nissan, and another Tesla. We've already seen quite a few Tesla models on this track already, and most of, if not all of them, have been doing really well, and this one is already showing that they don't want to be any different than that, because they're rocketing ahead in front of the other racers. In fact, the other 3 are already off camera. If this Tesla is anything like we've seen with the previous ones, especially in these first few seconds, then they could easily be shattering some records today. I believe the fastest record we've had so far was about a 13.68. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. And that is definitely a 13-second mark. Did they actually beat the record already? It looks like they did by about 1/10 of a second. This Tesla is already making their presence known. About 13.5 seconds. We saw so many racers in the first 4 weeks struggling to break that 14-second mark, and recently we've seen a few people do that more than once. These other 3 racers definitely have their work cut out for them. Yeah, we've definitely had quite a few interesting things happen. in these first 4 weeks already. We had a racer who never lost. We had a racer who never finished. And we've had quite a few records set, broken, and even shattered. And it looks like this Tesla model is going to join that group of shattering records because they already now, I'm pretty sure, hold the fastest time we've seen so far. And they're looking to do it again. And as I say that, they completely derail. They fly off their path and they've come to a complete stop. Meanwhile, the other 3 racers are taking full advantage of this opportunity, hoping to secure a better spot in the standings. And this time it was the Lamborghini who finished first. Meanwhile, the Tesla, shown to be a massive threat, their back end is just off the ground. I'm not entirely sure what caused that to happen, but these other 3 racers made sure to take that opportunity while they could get it. A massive shock to be sure, but that blows the door wide open for some of the other racers to have an opportunity to move on to the finals. Now, I don't think the Tesla is going to do that again, but as we just saw, anything can happen at any time. Usually it's the turns that kill a racer's speed, but that time it just seemed to be some sort of fast twist that caused them to flip over. But the Tesla is making sure that that was an exception as opposed to the rule, and they've once again taken a huge lead heading towards the finish line. This time with a 13.52, they've broken the record again. I was sure we were going to have a few racers breaking the 14-second mark, but now it looks like we might have 1 or 2 that'll break 13.5 seconds at some point. And that Tesla model moves so fast that they actually knocked the camera loose a little bit. Holy cow! But the Tesla has shown that that non-finish was just a fluke. At this point, the other 3 racers are just fighting for a second place position. Although I'm pretty sure the Lamborghini is actually tied with the Tesla, so they have the best odds right now. That being said, if the Tesla can stay on the ground and not get loose like they did that second race, then even if the Lamborghini does move on with them, the Tesla is still most likely, from what we've already seen, to not only move on to the finals, but win the whole thing. Did they break the record again? It's hard to tell from this exact angle, but they are a monster on this track. A 13.89. They did not break the record, but they've gotten sub 14 all 3 times that they finished, showing that they could easily win this entire thing, showing how consistent they are, because other racers have broken 14 seconds, but not consistently. And as I say that, we now move on to our second group. So here we have a Lotus, a Porsche, another Pininfarina, and yet another Tesla. We've actually seen a handful of Porsches, and this is only the second Pininfarina we've had, I believe. But once again, another Tesla makes an appearance. I guess that's what happens, though, when you have electric cars involved in the tournament. Right now, the Pininfarina did have the lead, but going into that turn, the Tesla has it, and they're actually really going back and forth right now. And now the Pininfarina's back out in front, going into this final stretch. They might take the win, but they actually skid sideways, and the Tesla managed to find an open window to take the win away. The Pininfarina does still finish in second, so they're still in a good position for the moment. Meanwhile, the Porsche finishes in third, and the Lotus in fourth. Now, the time was a 15.58, so even though the Tesla wasn't the one that skidded sideways, they still finished in the 15-second area, which compared to some of the other Teslas is not very good. You want to usually get at least into the 14-second mark, otherwise you could be in trouble in later races. Meanwhile, we're into our second set of races here. Once again, the Pininfarina and the Tesla are out in front, but we'll see in a second that the Tesla has the widest turn, which seems to be the biggest killer of speed for most of the racers on this track, which is evident here because they're falling behind a little bit and the Porsche is actually caught up to them. taking second place, and the Pininfarina is out in front again, and they almost skid sideways, but they managed to correct themselves, and it's the Porsche that finished in second. The Tesla actually came to a stop, but it's thanks to the Lotus that they finished. But meanwhile, because they bumped into the Tesla, it was the Lotus that lost all their speed, and they were unable to finish. The Tesla is having some lucky breaks today, which is good for them right now, but in the long run, that could spell trouble. So the Pininfarina is still leading in points, and they seem to be a bit more consistent than the Tesla is. But based on what we're seeing so far, there's a good chance that those two will move on. But if the Porsche takes advantage of some of these opportunities like they did in that last race, they might still have a shot as well. It's not looking too good for the Lotus, but I'm not counting anyone out at this point based on some of the previous races we've seen. Right now, the Pininfarina actually does have a big lead, but once again, that huge turn killed a lot of their speed, but they still managed to hold on to that lead. And once again, the Porsche is in second, and the Tesla is nowhere to be seen right now. The Pininfarina wins again. The Tesla, are they going to finish? No, they're not. Somehow, they seem to be getting worse with each race. And the Porsche is taking full advantage of their chance to stay in this game. Now, the Pininfarina did finish here with a 15.6. Still not very good, but they have pretty much solidified their odds of moving on. And with that, it is actually the Porsche that is in second place in the standings. The Tesla will need to think of something, and think of something fast here. Otherwise, they could very well be one of the few Teslas to not make it past the first round. Now, they are staying relatively close together, showing that the Tesla did not like how that last race went, so they're trying to keep up, and they are. And the Porsche had that really wide turn, killing a lot of their speed, so now it is the Pininfarina and the Tesla fighting for first place. The Tesla cuts the Pininfarina off, and they both get shaken loose a little bit, but the Pininfarina shows to be a little bit angry with the Tesla there, because they were butting heads near the end there. And the Pininfarina did try to take the win at the last second, but did not have the speed to pull that off. And they finished with about 16 seconds. Not the best place where they want to be, but the Tesla barely squeaked their way back into the finals. So here we have two different Tesla vehicles alongside a Lamborghini and a Pininfarina. Now, the Tesla Cybertruck has already shown to be a massive threat in this tournament. In fact, they're demonstrating that again as they already take off in the first stretch. And going into that tight turn, they slingshot themselves forward, moving like a rocket. Now, I wouldn't count the other races out just yet, because as we saw in that one race, just because the Tesla's out in front doesn't mean they're going to win, because they could pop off the track again, giving another racer a wide open opportunity to take a win, increasing their chances to move on. Now, that didn't quite happen here, as the Tesla finishes at about 14 seconds, which I believe is the first time where they actually finished above the 14-second mark, but it was very close. The other three racers definitely have their work cut out for them. So the Tesla Cyber already is setting themselves up big time, while the Pininfarina is trying to stay in this competition with a second place win. For all we know, they could be taking revenge for the previous Pininfarina that did not win on day one. But it's going to be difficult because of just how fast this Tesla Cyber vehicle has been already. But one thing I'm noticing is even on the straight parts of the track, is that just because of that speed, it could be working against the Tesla Cybertruck a little bit because of the force behind that speed, and they actually spin around. But they had such a huge lead that even when they started going sideways and moving at a snail's pace going backwards, they still managed to get the win. And even with all that mishap, they still finished with a 14.2. Very, very respectable. So with that win, the Tesla Cyber just needs one more in order to win overall and join our previous four winners in the next stage of this tournament. So if the Pininfarina wants any sort of chance to keep their hopes alive, they will need to finish in front of the Cybertruck right here and now, which is very difficult to do because the Tesla Cybertruck builds such a gap between the other 3 racers so quickly that it's hard for anyone to catch up unless the Tesla Cybertruck messes up in any way. And so far he isn't doing that, but that could change in the final stretch. He spins around, and honestly, I think he was just showing off there. He's like, you know what? If I'm going to win and move on automatically, I'm just going to do it in style. So as he approaches that final stretch, he just does a clean 360, and with all that still finishes with a 14.15. So even if he does slip up a little bit, he can put up some really good times. So with that 3rd win, the Tesla Cybertruck has already stamped their spot in the next stage of the tournament with the last 4 winners. So at this point, this could just be for bragging rights. They could slow down if they really wanted to, but the driver of that Tesla Cybertruck has already shown that slowing down is not on their radar. And they probably would also want to get the partial sweep if nothing else, just because they missed out on it on the last one due to that one slip-up. Going into that final stretch, they do shake up and spin around going backwards a little bit, but they built such a lead that it did not matter. And look at that, despite all the spinning and the bouncing off the walls and the going backwards, whatever, they still put up a 14.1 time. Even with all the slip-ups they have, they are showing to pull off these really great times, resulting in them being a massive threat to all the winners we have so far, along likely with the 3 winners that will join them in that roster in the next stage of the tournament. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time for more races and fun. Everyone, and welcome to day number 6 of our Highway to Hell gas versus electric car tournament. We are approaching the home stretch to fill out the roster, and here's our first group for today: a BMW, Kia, Porsche, and once again we have another Tesla. Although this one is standing out in terms of color, because most of the other ones have been a shade of gray, while this one is a bright orange. But as they're showing right now, just because they stand out in color does not mean they stand out in speed or performance, as they are falling behind already. The Kia has a bit of a lead, and the BMW seems to be stuck on that big turn back there, which has been a massive speed and performance killer for many of our racers, especially on that wide lane there. But the Kia does finish in first, 2 of our other racers right behind him, and the BMW does at least manage to finish, which is more than some of our racers can say. And the Kia finished with a 14.29, and that is a good time, not a record breaker per se, but usually if you're finishing in the low 14s, that's still a good sign for you going forward. Now, keeping that in mind, they do still have their work cut out for them if they want to try and break our current record of a 13.52, currently held by the Tesla Cybertruck, who not only has been a threat to the people he's raced already, but is shown to be a massive threat overall and could very likely win the whole thing. I would not be surprised if that were the case. Currently, though, the Kia is going into this stretch here right before the final turn, and he actually flips around, goes backwards, but it looks like he might have enough ground already to still be able to take that win. He does. Here comes the Porsche. The Tesla finishes in 3rd again, and the BMW once again in 4th, but they weren't as far behind as they were in that first race, which means they could possibly get at least a 3rd place finish from the Tesla at some point. And a 14.53, still respectable, but still a lot of work to be done. So going into this 3rd heat now, the Porsche and the Kia have already set themselves up pretty well. In fact, the Kia, if they manage to win another race here, they will automatically solidify their shot to move on in the finals. The Porsche is also in a good position, especially when comparing them to the other 2 racers, but we've seen some crazier things happen, so I am not holding my breath right now. Going into this big turn though, the Porsche does lose a lot of their speed, but they're managing to stay ahead of the other 2, while the Kia goes into this final turn, flips around, goes backwards, but once again, they already had a big enough gap to the point where that just did not matter. And it looks like they're going to finish in the same positions as they have been so far this entire time. And even with that flipper, actually 14.8, not the best time, but they did lose some speed when they flipped backwards. At this point, it just does not matter though, because the Kia has already guaranteed their spot in the finals today, and the Porsche, while having a good shot, there's still technically a chance for the Tesla to do an upset. They would just need to do really well, while the Porsche would need to fall behind. Not very likely from what we've seen, but we've seen crazier stuff happen. The Kia does go into this wide turn here, but their lead is just so big that they didn't really get phased by that big turn. The final turn is where there's also some concern, but they did not spin around or anything, so they still finished with a really good time of a 14.04. So very close to breaking the 14-second mark. Unable to do it, but they've shown just now that they can if they can stay straight and keep fast the entire time. And they did have that wide turn which made them lose speed, but they're moving on with the finals along with the Porsche. Now, let's meet our second group. In our second group is another BMW, a Mustang, a Tesla, and a Lucid Air. These are all vehicles that we've seen perform earlier in other races. Some of them doing so well, some of them not doing so well. The BMW driver, I'm not sure how he's going to feel right now, considering how the other BMW driver just did. That might shake them up a bit. In fact, it looks like it does. And they have that really wide turn, causing them to slow down, and they are just falling apart already. Meanwhile, the other three racers are out in front. It looks like the Tesla does have the lead, but wait a minute. Oh my goodness. I thought someone was going to take that win from him at the last possible second, but it did not happen. Is the BMW going to finish? I don't know if that's going to count or not. The back wheel is touching the finish line. We'll have to see if that counts. The other three racers finish at about 15 seconds. Not the best place you want to be, especially if you're a Tesla and you're comparing yourself to other ones. They are not going to give that finish to the BMW. An absolute shame, but maybe they can make up for it in the second race. So here we go, race number 2. They're relatively staying together, but the BMW is starting to lose ground already. If they want to make something happen, they got to do it now. Otherwise, they're in massive trouble. Meanwhile, the other three racers are staying close together. They're kind of fighting for first, going back and forth. The Lucid Air has that big turn, causing them to lose so much speed. But the Tesla and the Mustang are staying together. Tesla is out in front, but the Mustang is trying to find a spot to take the lead, and they do it! Anything can happen, even at the last possible moment, and that has just been demonstrated right here. That was close, but because the Mustang finished in front of the Tesla, that could open the window for some of the other racers. And it looks like it'll be the case, because despite that third place finish, the Lucid Air does have a shot, with the way that last race ended, to finish in the top 2. They will need to stay with the Mustang and the Tesla, but they've shown so far that they're able to do that. Unfortunately, it looks like the BMW is already out at this point. I'm sorry to all BMW racers and fans out there, but it's not looking good at all. The Tesla did fall behind with that wide turn there, so the Lucid Air is putting themselves in a good position. They go into this final turn, colliding, spinning around, and it looks like somehow the Mustang was able to find a window to pass the Lucid Air to take first place. The Lucid Air did still finish in second though, which puts them in an even better position to try and get a top 2 finish here. Let's look at the standings. They are still in third in the standings, but that finish definitely helped them with a chance. They will need to finish probably at least 2 spots in front of the Tesla, which may be very difficult to do, but the Tesla has actually gotten worse with each race, while the Lucid Air has stayed relatively consistent. That could really help them there, and they do have a tighter turn coming up than the Tesla does. That could work to their advantage. The Lucid Air does take a bit of a lead here. The question is, will they be able to hold on to it and take that spot away? The Tesla will also need to be 2 spots behind. I don't think that's going to happen though. A very valiant effort by the Lucid Air. They got as close as they probably could without moving on. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like they will. They got really close. I am so sorry to all the Lucid Air fans out there. Oh, wait a minute. I stand corrected. It's a tiebreaker. The Lucid Air and the Tesla will still have to fight to move on here. I will admit, I did not see that coming. I honestly thought the Tesla still had more points than the Lucid Air did. But here I am standing corrected as they fight for that second spot in the finals. Right now, the Lucid Air has a wider turn, so they're probably going to lose some speed here, and they do. The Tesla is out in front. They're going to go into this final turn, which can still make a big difference here. The Tesla goes sideways, and the Lucid Air is somehow able to pull off a win here. It looked like it was the Tesla's race to lose, but going into that last turn, the Tesla Air lost so much speed going sideways, and the Lucid Air took full advantage of that. So here we go into race number 2. The Lucid Air is gradually increasing their chances to move on with each and every race. If they can finish first here, they will steal the second spot from the Tesla. Something I'm sure not a lot of people saw coming, but they certainly wanted to see happen. Now the Tesla had the wider turn, so they are falling behind, but they are right next to each other going into this final stretch. The Lucid Air managed to make the Tesla spin out in that last turn again, and they took the win. They actually managed to steal that spot away from the Tesla. An incredible performance by the Lucid Air. So now it'll be the Lucid Air and the Mustang moving on to the final round. Now, it's almost hard to say that anything could beat the excitement of that last race. However, I'm sure a lot of people will be excited about these finals because this is one of the first final rounds we've had in a while that did not involve a Tesla. We had 2 Teslas, but both of them fell short. Right now, it's the Kia out in front, but the Lucid Air has been showing this entire time that they are not going to go down without a fight. And they are staying close behind along with the other racers, so this ought to be interesting. Can the Kia stay straight? They almost don't, but they did lose some speed. Here comes the Lucid Air, but unfortunately, it was not enough to take the win, but they are in a good, solid second right now. If the Lucid Air manages to pull off a win here, it'll be one of the greatest victories I've seen so far. They will need to finish in front of the Kia at least once. But based on their positions on the track, it could very well happen at some point. But these 4 racers are tough. Right now the Porsche is falling behind a little bit, but they do have that tight turn later, so they could make up some ground. The Lucid Air is in third, but look at this, they're starting to pull forward a little bit, and they almost take the lead going into that turn. But the Kia is still out in front. They're fighting for it. And the Lucid Air actually managed to get the lead. Can he hold on to it? He does! The Lucid Air is one tough racer. I don't know who's driving that car, but they have some of the highest determination I've ever seen. And they almost broke the 14-second mark. I am sure that all the Lucid Air fans are on the edges of their seats right now. Because early on, it didn't seem like they had much of a shot, but they have been slowly climbing back up the ladder, and now they are tied for first with a solid chance to take the ultimate win. They do have the tightest turn coming up here. Let's see if they take advantage of it. They do! In fact, some of the other racers really slowed down, kind of almost touching each other somehow. But the Lucid Air is way out in front. If they can hold on to it, they might have this win overall. And the other 3 racers almost didn't finish at all. They had to kind of push each other along there. And because the Porsche finished in second, the Lucid Air has a very, very solid chance to win everything today. And all of a sudden, it is the Kia that is on the bubble, while the Lucid Air has just greatly increased their chances to take the win. If they can pull this off, and it looks like they will have one of the biggest comeback stories I have ever seen personally. Even if they don't necessarily win, if they can stay out in front in points, This will be a story that'll inspire many racers in the future, I am sure. Right now the Kia does have the lead, but here come the other racers as the Kia loses a lot of speed. The Lucid Air does manage to swipe second place and keep that second by sticking out their nose, and it looks like they will have the win. They may have not had the fastest time, they may have not had some of the craziest performances, but the Lucid Air manages to somehow snag that win. A great story for a racer. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you for more races and fun. Number 7 of the Highway to Hell Gas vs. Electric Car Tournament. Here is our first group. It is a Tesla, a Pininfarina, an Audi, and a Porsche. All familiar types of cars we've seen in other races, although the Porsche seems to be a slightly different design than what I'm used to. Doesn't seem quite as aerodynamic as some of the other ones, but maybe I'm going to be proven wrong. We'll see. Right now, though, it is the Tesla out in front. The Audi is not too far behind, and despite that big turn, the Tesla does have a slight lead still, but the Audi is right behind him. Let's see if the Tesla can stay straight through that final stretch. He kind of does, but the Audi actually pulls out in front of him, taking the win from him at the last second. And they finish with about a 1.45, which isn't terrible. Again, you want to stay at the very most in the 14-second area. Anything more than that, and you could be in trouble later. But the Porsche actually does finish in 3rd, and the Pininfarina in 4th. So we have a good start for the Audi. Let's see if he can hold on to that. So I know a lot of people have been saying how they don't want to keep seeing Teslas win, and if anybody can do it right now, it appears to be the Audi. We'll have to see if that remains true with each lane that they race in. Right now the Tesla is ahead, but the Audi has shown that he can quickly catch up as he's doing right now, and he has the tighter turn. Can he take advantage of that? Almost. He's even closer to the Tesla than he was the first time. They go into this final stretch. The Tesla goes sideways, losing a lot of speed, but he kept the Audi from passing him that time. So now they're going to be even, and the same thing can be said for the Pininfarina and the Porsche, who have also swapped positions in 3rd and 4th respectively. A 14.8 still in the 14-second area, but you want to be a little bit faster than that based on the competition we've seen. So at this point, with how it's gone for the first 2 races, it's essentially anyone's game still. But the 2 to watch out for are our 2 red vehicles, the Audi and the Tesla. They're already pulling away in this first turn. Yeah, really, they don't seem to have much competition from the other 2, which is kind of surprising. Because we've definitely seen some Porsches and Pininfarinas do well before, but it doesn't seem to be the case here. Meanwhile, the Tesla is once again out in front. They skid sideways. I'm not quite sure if the Audi took the lead at the last second, but that Tesla is having difficulty remaining straight. Let's see what kind of time that was. 14.4, that's pretty good, but I'm not entirely sure who won. Let's see who the points are given to. It was the Audi. The Audi actually got the lead there. So the Tesla has some work cut out for them if they want to get the win here. Going into the 4th race now, it looks like the Tesla will be moving on alongside the Audi. It's just a matter of who wants to take that top spot. Obviously they both do, but only one of them can ultimately do that. Right now they're neck and neck, but the Tesla does have the tighter turn, takes a little bit of an advantage of that, and at the very least is looking to tie this up. Going into that last turn, the Tesla does remain straight this time, so the Tesla and the Audi will both be moving on with a tied score. Meanwhile, the Porsche and the Pininfarina, despite their best efforts, they fall short. So let's see, 14.1, they're getting closer and closer to that 14-second mark, but so far they haven't quite been able to cross it. So congratulations to the Tesla and the Audi. Now let's move on to our second group. It is the Mustang, a Tesla, a Viper, and a Nissan. Now up to this point we haven't had too many Vipers. In fact, if I recall correctly, we've only ever had one. So let's see if this Viper can do any better than the last one. So far it looks like they are, because they're staying out in front for the moment. But here comes the Nissan, rapidly getting a lead with that tight turn, expanding said lead. And the Viper is following close behind. Going into this final turn, the Viper is spinning out of control, trying to hold on to second place, but he skids again. And it looks like the Tesla was able to steal second place away from the Viper. On the other hand, it looks like the Mustang didn't even finish. Somehow it looks like they popped off the rail a little bit and couldn't even get into that last turn. Not very good, but hopefully, since that was the widest turn, they'll have a better experience with the other 3 legs of this race. So not a good start for the Mustang, but that doesn't mean they're done yet. The Nissan is looking pretty good, but now they're going to have that wide turn in this next race here. So if they want to have a decent chance at a win in this particular race, they'll want to try and get as much of a lead as they possibly can. And here comes the Viper and the Tesla again. Let's see. Yep, in that big turn, the Nissan did lose a bit of speed, and because of that, they're falling behind. Meanwhile, the Tesla is out in front with the Viper right behind. The Tesla loses control, and they're fighting. Seriously fighting for that. But once again, the Viper can't do better than third. Truly an unlucky break for that driver, because they're definitely holding their own. But somehow, each time, second and sometimes even first is stolen away from them. Hopefully the Viper can redeem themselves in this third race, but we'll have to see. So going into this third race now, the Viper has not had the greatest of experiences, but that doesn't mean they can't do something. They've shown they can get down to the end. They just got to make sure that nobody passes them in the process. Right now the Viper is out in front, with the Nissan closing in on him a little bit. Now that big turn is a bit of a killer, but they're still very much in contention. The Tesla does cut in front of them. There goes the Nissan right behind him, and they try to get first, but the Tesla blocks, allowing him to secure the win. And once again, the Viper is just very unfortunate. They always seem to start out well, but somehow 2 racers always seem to pass them, and they finish in third again. So now going into this final race, the Viper still technically has a chance to move on here. In order for that to happen though, the Viper would need to finish in first, while the Nissan would not finish at all. If the Nissan finishes anywhere, regardless of position, it'll be the Nissan moving on with the Tesla, and the Viper, despite their valiant efforts, will not be able to make it. Right now the Nissan is out in front. Here comes the Viper and the Tesla. The Viper does finally finish in second, but unfortunately it's just too late at this point, because the Nissan not only finished, but finished in first with a time of 14.42 no less. So the Nissan will be joining the Tesla in the finals. So going into the finals here, we have 2 separate Teslas, along with a Nissan and an Audi. This really increases the odds that yet another Tesla will join the 8 racers in the grand finals. So the Nissan and the Audi definitely want to beat those odds and make sure that doesn't happen. Right now our red Tesla is out in front, but they do have that wider turn, and now the Audi is right next to him in contention, taking the lead. Going into the final stretch, they go through this turn. The Tesla is right behind him, but does not have the speed to take the win from the Audi. This is a great start for the Audi to stop the Teslas from moving on. And unfortunately, somehow the Nissan flipped upside down going into that last turn and was unable to finish. If they wanted to contribute towards stopping the Teslas, they were not able to do it. It looks like they did it on their own too. An absolute shame. So with the Nissan's performance, if there's any way to stop the Teslas, that all lies on the shoulders of the Audi. Unless something absolutely crazy happens, which at this point I wouldn't be too surprised. Because we have seen some crazy events like how the Nissan just flipped upside down in that last race. Right now the Audi does have the lead again, and they have the tighter turn, giving them a bit of an advantage. And the one Tesla is way behind, but the red one is trying to keep up, is unable to do that, and the Nissan finds a way to slow him down. At this point, I think the Nissan knows they don't have the most solid chance to win, so they're just stopping the other Tesla from crossing in front of the Audi. And look at this, somehow that Tesla tried to race on both lanes and got completely stuck. So now the Audi has 2 wins, 1 more, and they can stop the Teslas. And I also want to point out that the Audi did manage to break that 14-second mark there. Just barely, but it's still a big deal. So now, if the Audi can finish here, they will knock out both Teslas, which I'm sure will excite many anti-Tesla fans. They do have the lead right now. They have a wider turn, though. Is that going to help them? No, it is not. In fact, they're slowing down. The Nissan is actually right next to him, but he's letting the Audi pass to increase their chances to stop the Tesla. And look at this! Ladies and gentlemen, both Teslas have been knocked out. Once again, that red Tesla had trouble staying straight. The Audi saw their opportunity, took the win, and is going to ultimately win this leg. So if you were any of those people that didn't want to see another Tesla join the top 8, do not worry, there won't be another one joining this time. At this point, the Audi just wants to get the sweep for bragging rights, but they can breathe a little bit easier knowing that the 2 Teslas have no shot. And with that kind of note in mind, it looks like the Nissan is actually trying a little bit harder just to stick it to the Teslas, but because of that wide turn, they fell behind there. And the Audi's trying to get first. So far they can't, and the red Tesla managed to block them, but at this point it just does not matter anymore. The Audi will be the one moving on. No Tesla here today. And a valiant team effort, it appears, with the Nissan's help. So congratulations to the Audi. We only have 1 spot left. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll see you for race 8 of Races and Fun. Everyone, and welcome to day number 8 of the Highway to Hell Gas vs. Electric Car Tournament. This is the last day of the regular season, if you will, which means we only have 1 spot left in the grand finals. The previous 7 have already been filled. One of these 4 could join them, but it could be one of the 4 from the second group, which we will meet later. For now, though, there's a Tesla, a Lucid Air, a Corvette, and an Acura. The Tesla is out in front, which I'm sure many people are sick of seeing by now, but things could change as we saw just now. The Lucid Air is out in front, but here comes a Tesla again. They're kind of going back and forth as they go into this final turn. The Lucid Air is trying to catch him. Can he do it? No, he can't, but he finished in a very close second. The Acura in third, and here comes the Corvette in last. And I think that was a 14.68. Not the greatest time we've ever seen, but still a respectable one. Not a good start for the Corvette, though. Hopefully they can turn things around in the next 3 races. So a good start for the Tesla, but the Lucid Air did finish right behind them, so I think the Lucid Air could still pull off something here. It's just a matter of how and when. They are going to get that large turn that kills a lot of speed later on in the track, so they want to try and get as much of a lead as they possibly can, and right now they're not exactly doing that. And with the Tesla right on their tail, that's probably not a good sign. Yep, the Tesla has taken the lead from them, but the Lucid Air and the Acura are right behind him. Can the Tesla stay straight? They spin around, but so does the Lucid Air. And the Acura tries to push the Lucid Air across to stop the Tesla from winning, but sadly the Tesla was able to block him before he could pass through. A 15.33, not where you want to be. Granted, that's after they spun around, so they did lose some speed there. But we'll see what happens in race 3. Coming into race 3 now, it's looking good for the Tesla and the Lucid Air currently. So the Corvette and the Acura have some work to do. Because remember, we're only allowing the top 2 through. So even if they don't necessarily finish first, they still have a shot if they move on to the finals. And the Lucid Air is keeping in contention with the Tesla, but the Tesla still has a tighter turn than he does. And now the Acura is staying on par with the Lucid Air, but the Tesla is spinning out of control, does regain their composure, and finishes first yet again, which guarantees their spot in the finals. But look at this, the Acura somehow got stuck, and the Corvette slides past them, allowing them to finish in third. We'll have to look at the replay on that one. I'm not entirely sure what happened. Did they lose control? Did somebody stop them? I can't tell if the Lucid Air really made any connection with them, but somehow the Acura went sideways and just could not regain enough speed to finish. Very unfortunate for the Acura. So we go into the final race now, and the Tesla has already stamped their spot in the finals, and it's looking pretty good for the Lucid Air. But we've seen time and time again in this tournament that some absolutely crazy and unexpected things can happen at any point for any reason. So at this point, unless there's absolutely no chance for a racer to catch up, I am not counting anyone out. Right now though, the Lucid Air is staying in front of the Tesla, knocks his nose into the wall so he loses a lot of momentum, and the Lucid Air will actually finish in front of the Tesla. It didn't necessarily mean too much considering they had a high chance of moving on anyways, but that was just so the Lucid Air could stop the Tesla from having a sweep. They could still do that in the finals, but at least it won't be a total sweep this time. And they finished with a 14.54, very respectable. They might want to up their game a little bit for any competition they may have later, but with the Tesla and Lucid Air moving on, let's go to the second group. So in the second group, we have a Kia, a Pininfarina, a BMW, and a Ford. We've seen some Kias and Pininfarinas do somewhat well, at the very least. But now here's the chance for a Ford or a BMW to shine, because we haven't seen too many of them actually. Right now though, the Kia is out in front, has a decent sized lead, but here comes the Ford trying to keep up with them. Can they take advantage of that turn? They do a little bit, but the Kia is still out in front. If the Kia can keep straight, they'll probably get this win. Oh, but look at this, they're spinning sideways. Here comes the Ford, can they catch him? No, they can't. Very close though. Meanwhile, here comes the BMW, and then the Pininfarina. From what we've seen, I think the Pininfarinas are a little inconsistent. Sometimes they do really well, and sometimes they don't. I'm not sure if it's the shape of the car, or the way the track's laid out. I'm not entirely certain. But with that last place finish, let's see if they can pick up some slack in the next race. So race number 2, here we go. Everyone's been rearranged. Let's see if these lane changes can make any sort of difference. Off we go. Kia is already starting to take a slight lead, but the Ford is right next to him, and he has a tighter turn, but they're still staying neck and neck. Right now the Ford has the bigger turn, and the Kia has already had that lane, so they are looking good right now, especially as they pull in front. They almost jumped off the lane, it seems. They start going backwards. The Ford is trying to catch him again, but still is unable to. I'm not sure what caused the Kia to jump up there, but they still managed to get the win, which is good for them. Meanwhile, it looks like one of our racers didn't finish. Somehow the Pininfarina ended up on its side. Usually we see some stop sideways, and we've seen one or two flip upside down, but I don't think I've ever seen that. Somehow the momentum must have shifted them to their side, but I'm not entirely certain. Either way, not looking good for the Pininfarina. So unfortunately at this point, it looks like the Pininfarina has next to no shot. Maybe they can pull something off that I just don't see coming, but otherwise, it's not looking good for them. Once again though, the Kia and the Ford are neck and neck as they go into this turn, which could make all the difference. Kia already has a slight lead and extends that lead by quite a bit. Going into the final stretch now, can they keep straight this time? They seem to do a slight hop, but they did manage to keep straight, allowing them to finish with a solid time. Ford right behind them. Here comes the Pininfarina, actually. finishing in third. Is the BMW going to finish? Yes, they will. I'm not entirely sure what allowed the Pininfarina to do a little bit better there. Granted, third's not much better, but it's certainly better than not finishing at all. But look at that time of 14.11. A very solid time. Any closer you can get to the 14-second mark, the better. So as we go into this last race, the Kia has already guaranteed their position in the finals alongside our other two entrants already. The Ford is looking good, not completely guaranteed. The BMW still technically has a shot, although that shot is extremely small at this point. They would need to, at the very least, finish in front of the Ford, and it's not looking like that's going to happen. The Kia is trying to get a solid sweep here. Can they do it? They're staying straight, so it's looking like they will, yes. Yes, they will. And the Ford is going to move on alongside them. Here comes the BMW moving very slow, slipping sideways, and they were unable to finish. The Pininfarina slips past them, but that is not a way they want to go out. It's like they had no shot at that point, but at the very least, I would have wanted to finish. Looking at this, though, the Kia did break the 14-second mark, and they got the sweep. So they're looking a little bit more promising than the Tesla that was in the last leg, but they will move on with the Ford as we approach the finals. So once again in the finals we have a Tesla, but once again as well we have a Lucid Air and several other vehicles that are trying to stop them. They've been able to do that in more recent races, so let's see if they can do that again here. Right now, they're all staying side by side, which makes it that much more exciting because the competitiveness rises from that. Right now, the Kia is out in front, then the Ford, then the Tesla, and then the Lucid Air. Can they stay straight? That's a big question that I often ask because they sometimes do and sometimes they don't. But the Kia does finish in first along with the Ford. The Tesla finishes in third, and the Lucid Air is the one who stops almost approaching the finish line, so they won't gain any points. Not a promising start, especially compared to some other Lucid Airs, but with the Tesla finishing in third, there's a good chance that they may not make it. So we'll have to see what happens in the next race. So it looks like the Tesla will have one of the middle lanes, which could mean since they don't have any super wide turns, they might be able to be a little bit more consistent with their speed. If they can take advantage of that, then they might be able to make a bit of a comeback here. Right now, the Kia is out in front yet again, and they've won every race they've been in so far. Let's see if they can keep that streak alive. That big turn did kill some of their speed, but they're still staying in contention for the lead. The Tesla is out in front, and he's blocking two of the other racers, allowing him to get the win. Some people might see that as a very dirty move, as he almost kept all three of them from finishing. But the Kia and the Ford finish at least. Sadly though, the Lucid Air does not finish again. So at this point, it's pretty much guaranteed that they will not finish. That is very unfortunate, especially after making it this far. Yeah, that may be one of the slowest finishes overall that I have ever seen. But the Tesla is back in the game. Can the Kia or the Ford stop them? And now at this point, if there's anyone that could possibly stop that Tesla, it's going to be likely the Kia, possibly the Ford. We could see a little bit of teamwork like we did in last day's race that stopped a Tesla from moving on. But we will have to see as they go into this big turn here. The Tesla does have the upper hand, with the Kia right behind him, along with the Lucid Air, who's staying in contention this time. They go into this final turn, all of them pretty much stay straight, and the Tesla wins again. This time, though, the Lucid Air finishes, and they finished in third. Might not make much of a huge difference since the top two are staying relatively consistent here. But in order for the Kia to win, they will have to beat the Tesla in the final race. So now we approach the final race of this leg, unless somebody ties, but it doesn't look like that will happen. The Kia does have a shot to take the Tesla out, But in order to do that, he needs to beat him here and now. There is no other option. So far, the Kia does have that tight turn, so they'd be able to take that to their advantage. And they are out in the lead, trying to keep the Tesla from finishing in front of them. If they can stay straight, they may actually stop the Tesla. They finish in first. The Lucid Air almost stops the Tesla from finishing in second, which would have pretty much sealed it. We'll have to check the score. But unfortunately, once again, we have somebody who does not finish in the last race. Once again, that is not something you want to happen. Even if you have no shot, you still want to go out and finish strong. But look at that, it's the Kia! They actually managed to stop the Tesla! So ladies and gentlemen, we have our final 8. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the grand finals. We are finally here. After the previous 8 days of races, the top 8 are set, and we are ready to go into the grand finals. The first group is ready. We have the Audi, the Jaguar, the Tesla, and the Lucid Air. 4 very formidable racers. Let's see what happens now when they all go up against each other. They are pretty much staying side by side already, which is a good sign that this will be competitive. Audi's out in front, but here comes the Jaguar, trying to keep up with them. Then here comes the Tesla. Lucid Air is right behind them. The Lucid Air does have the advantage of the tight turn, but does not take full advantage of it. Tesla's out in front, but the Jaguar's trying to spin him around. He does. They both go sideways. They're all going right up against each other, but the Tesla manages to finish in first, and somehow the Jaguar fell behind and finished in last. The other 2 racers were able to pull in front of him, which puts them in a better position for the second race. So whichever vehicles finish in the top 2 will move on to the final race of the entire tournament. So far, the Tesla and the Lucid Air have put themselves in a good position to do that, but considering how each of the racers got here, how hard they worked, I wouldn't be surprised if this goes back and forth a little bit. These guys are staying almost dead even, which kind of makes sense considering how well each of them did to get here. Although right now the Tesla's out in front, can the Jaguar try to spin him out again? He's unable to do that. In fact, the Jaguar spins out on his own, does at least finish in second this time, but the Tesla does finish in first, also under the 14-second mark, I'd like to point out. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot more of that in these grand finals. So this is interesting. The Tesla is out in front with 10 points, but the other 3 have somehow managed to make it so they're all tied with 4. So the door is currently wide open for anyone to move on. I mean, the Tesla's in a very good position for sure, but the other 3 are fighting for second place right now. Tesla is in front, has the widest turn though, stays at least in front of the Lucid Air, who's somehow falling behind now. The other 3 are clambering together in that final turn, spin each other out. Somehow the Audi found an opening in that little commotion there and finished in first, denying the Tesla any chance of a sweep, which I think the Audi has actually done in previous races. So with that first place finish, the Audi has greatly increased their odds to move on. It's not necessarily guaranteed though, especially after those first 2 races, but any first place finish can really help you here. The other racers still have a shot to mess things up a little bit for them, but as long as the Audi finishes, he should be fine. Going into that big turn, right now the Jaguar's right behind them, but they're not able to keep up. They spin each other out into that final turn. Here comes a huge pileup. The Tesla's out in front, able to take the win, and the Audi's in fourth. Are they going to be able to hold on to their spot in the grand final race? I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to look at the score. Yes, they barely hold on to it. So they will race in the grand finals along with 2 members from our second group. And in that second group, we have 2 separate Teslas, a Lucid Air and a Kia. The one to watch out for is that Tesla Cybertruck, because they have been shown to be an absolute monster on this track. Not necessarily getting any sweeps, I'm sure, although correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but they still at least hold the fastest time we've seen so far, which I think was a 13.52, so they have been shown that they are capable of breaking the 13.5-second mark. It doesn't look like they'll do it here, thanks to that skidding sideways at the end and bouncing off the wall, but they certainly got really close with a 13.76. Meanwhile, the other three racers come in, and one of them actually tumbled past the camera a little bit. Hopefully the driver's okay. It seems like they are, so we'll go into our second race. Heat 2 now. Everyone has switched lanes. The Tesla's going to have the wide turn here, but the tight turn in that one later on that kills a lot of speed for people. So they will have the upper hand going into the latter half of the race. And they already have a decent-sized lead that they're gradually extending. No one is able to touch them. They are getting a little loose on that snaking part of the track, but they do spin around. But because they're moving so quickly, no one is able to touch them. Did they break 13.5? It looks like they did. What kind of time did they have? A 13.44. That is the new fastest time in this entire tournament, once again held by the Cybertruck. I typically don't like to call things out too early, but based on these performances, I would not be surprised if the Cybertruck goes on to win the entire thing. Because for the most part, no one is able to touch them. They can't even get close. The biggest chance most of them will probably have is if the Cybertruck somehow gets loose or slows to a near stop. Oh wait, look, just as I say that, that's exactly what happens. The sheer timing of that after me saying that is incredible. The Tesla Cybertruck does not finish. They shook loose and managed to somehow end up on their side. For the most part, they handle the track relatively well, but that one snaking section often gets them loose. That could hurt them later on if they don't stay straight and on their wheels. Despite that finish though, because of the first two finishes, the Cybertruck has still solidified a decent shot at moving on. But because of that non-finish, the Lucid Air still has an opportunity to move on. They may not be able to stop both Tesla vehicles, but they might be able to stop at least one of them. And even though the Kia probably isn't going to move on at this point, they can still contribute to stopping the other Teslas. The Cybertruck does finish in first again with a 13.55, so not a record breaker, but still very, very good by most other times' standards. With that final race though, the Cybertruck and the Tesla are both moving on. Here we go. The final race is here. And in this final group, it looks like the Audi will have their work cut out for them, as they will have to stop not one, not two, but three separate Teslas, and one of them is the incredibly deadly Cybertruck. Right now the Cybertruck is fighting for the first place spot. It's hard to just say Tesla anymore because there's three of them. But Tesla's out in front. They completely go off the rails. What in the world just happened there? They somehow went off their own lane and went into another one entirely. And they're somehow still going. What happened to the Audi? That may be one of the weirdest finishes I've ever seen. I think it's entirely possible that somehow the Cybertruck was able to jump lanes and block the Audi from finishing. That may be one of the fanciest yet dirtiest moves I've ever seen in a race like this. I don't even know what's going to happen for the rest of this competition, but I don't think anything is going to beat the craziness of what just happened. We've definitely had some crazy events before in this tournament, but I don't think I've ever seen any racer in the history of these races jump lanes and survive. Props to the Cybertruck, but considering they also probably stopped the Audi in their tracks, I'm sure they'll be losing a lot of respect for that move. Some might be amazed, some might not. And they broke the 13.5 second mark again, though it's still not quite the fastest time. That is insane, though. And with that win, the Cybertruck is in a much better position than they were in the first race. So at this point, the Audi is very much in trouble, as all 3 Tesla racers are in front of them in terms of points. And considering, once again, the Tesla Cybertruck is one of those 3, they really do have their work cut out for them. And they don't have any non-Tesla teammates to help them here. The Tesla almost pops off the rail again. Had they done that, I don't think they would have been able to recover from that. But they do finish first again, and the Audi's in last, so it looks like we are going to have a Tesla win the entire tournament, likely to be the Cybertruck. Let's look at the points again, just to be sure. And here we go. This is very likely the last race of the tournament. The Cybertruck is in a really good position to win the whole thing. All they have to do is finish better than last. If they finish in even 3rd place or better, they will win the entire thing. They do have the wide turn there. Let's see if someone can take advantage of that, but their lead is just so big, it may not even matter. If they derail here, which they don't, so they go into this final stretch, they are in front, and the Tesla Cybertruck will move on to win the whole thing. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our ultimate winner. With a final time of 13.6, not the fastest time they had, but they are our ultimate winner, and they hold on to the fastest time in the entire tournament. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Thank you Arctic Warriors for picking Team Tesla Cybertruck. Congrats to you. We'll see you all next time.